All right, Matt, big card coming up this weekend from Fight Island. Finally, we're going to Abu Dhabi. And Matt, UFC 251, a really good one. And the first fight on the prelims, an exciting bout at 135 pounds between Davey, who's still in the Navy, Grant, dangerous Davey Grant, taking on the Spartan Martin Day. And Matt, it's going to be a fun one because at 35, we've seen these guys have success. For Martin Day, yes, it was outside of the UFC, but a guy who's very familiar with the camp of Max Holloway, who's going to be headlining or in the co-main event slot against Alexander Volkanovski. And for Davey Grant, I mean, he has a big win on his record in the UFC over none other than one of Matt's personal favorites, Chito Marlon Vera. Now, Davey Grant, all right, so in his last fight, gets a big win over Grigory Popov, a guy who was a big prospect, but an older prospect coming into the UFC. He has 2 losses, so you can't take a whole lot from it other than the fact that Davey Grant did a really good job in that fight of switching stances, mixing in the low kicks, and when the fight got to the ground, both guys very adept with really, really strong ground games. I mean, Davey Grant, before he came into the UFC, was 9-1, and on the regional circuit, all 9 of those wins by submission. Popov, very well versed on the ground. Davey Grant able to reverse some of those positions, get out of some tough spots, and eke out a win. But this is the thing. He's a good submission fighter, and his fighting on the feet has gotten significantly better. Yeah. We've seen good advances. He's almost like, kind of a layman's Ryan Hall, if you will. A little bit, where the striking's not as polished and the jiu-jitsu's not as good, but you can kind of see some flashes there. So Davey Grant, out of his losses, all of them are by submission. That's a little bit of a telling sign. Martin Day, we know how good the striking is. We know how good it's been on the regional scene. And in his debut, it was a split decision loss to Liu Pinyuang. But where he lost that fight, a lot of media members actually scored it a win for Martin Day to the tune of 8-4. So you have a good striker, Martin Day. You have Davey Grant, that's definitely the more well-rounded fighter. What do you make of this one here?
So this fight kind of reminds me of the Julian Erosa-Sean Woodson fight from last weekend. One that we predicted very wrong, but still, kind of similar just because Davey Grant does kind of have that Julian Erosa style to him, if you will. Not afraid to eat shots, though, which is what really concerns me in this fight especially, because Davey Grant, the reason you know a guy has a good chin is because you've at least seen one fight where he has to eat quite a few shots. It just seems like every Davey Grant fight, he gets hit pretty clean. He does, again, it's not like he gets wobbled a lot. He doesn't really go down for them. But he just defensively, there's quite a bit left to be desired. And Martin Day, like you had said, really good striking. He lost a fairly close fight in his UFC debut. And Davey Grant has a loss that I just can't get over. If you've lost to Manny Bermudez while you're in the UFC, it is a concerning sight to see. Just because he was a guy who's more well known for missing weight than anything else. And yes, he was a good grappler and he had some good wins kind of peppered in there. It's just every guy who it seems like he's beaten since then hasn't gone on to really do all that much. It's not a great sign for your career, at least as of late, if you haven't lost to him.
Very much the Fernando Gonzalez of the UFC for his time there. All right, so we look over at the odds. Davey Grant actually coming in plus 145 underdog. And I'm going to say this, the line when it originally opened was a pick'em fight between these two guys, roughly minus 110. Davey Grant, the underdog, Martin Day gaining to become a minus 175 favorite. If you look over on Tapology, out of 802 votes, 62% going with Day, 76% predicting a decision. If this fight goes exactly like Davey Grant's last fight, Martin Day all day, which is easy to say. But if Davey Grant can get the fight to the ground, or if he can really make it a tough, gritty fight, like you had alluded to, kind of like the Julian Erosa game plan, should be able to get a win. Now, that's not a predictable outcome to try and pick, but overall, I like what Martin Day has in this one. I think if he can keep it standing, if he can keep the range, he has a reach advantage, he has a height advantage. I think overall, he should be able to get it done here.
I 100% agree. Now, if you go to his Instagram, you see him hanging out with BJ Penn a lot. That's a little concerning, but as long as he's training with Max Holloway, you know he's got a really good crop of guys. There are guys like Yancy Medeiros also train there. Max has a really good just coaching staff. They have a good gym. So I think Martin Day will be well prepared. He should be able to go into this one, kind of at the peak of his ability, just because Max Holloway would have been in training camp while Martin Day was in training camp, so you'd be directly training with each other on a day-to-day basis. And I don't know how you wouldn't get better doing
and
that.
Let's go one step further with Martin Day. We haven't seen him since November of 2018, since that debut. He's been out due to various injuries, booked against guys the likes of Chris Gutierrez, Benito Lopez, and then, of course, Randy Costa. That card obviously shuffled due to the global pandemic, but here we get to see Martin Day, and I'm really looking forward to it, Matt. It should be a good fight, both going with the Spartan Martin Day in our first fight on the prelims. Not going to want to miss the rest of our predictions for UFC 251 from Fight Island, Matt. As we always say with Fight Night Picks, let's get into it.